My daughter asked me to sell my house and move into a nursing home so she could use the money for the grandchildren's education. I agreed. But a week later, I saw her photos from the Maldives captioned, "Finally, a dream vacation." I called my real estate agent and said, "I'm glad you're here with me. Please listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled." I never thought my daughter would betray me like this, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, from when my life was still whole and my trust intact. My name is Margaret and I'm 62 years old. For the past 3 years since my husband Robert passed away from a sudden heart attack, I'd been living alone in our family home in Westchester County, New York. It was a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial we'd bought 35 years ago when Jennifer was just 3 years old. Every corner held memories. Robert teaching Jennifer to ride her bike in the driveway, family dinners in the kitchen, Christmases around the fireplace. The house had appreciated considerably over the decades. In today's market, it was worth close to $850,000. My pension from Robert's insurance and my own small retirement fund were enough to cover my modest needs, but I wasn't wealthy by any means. Jennifer, my only child, lived about 40 minutes away in Stamford, Connecticut, with her husband Brad and their 2 children, Tyler, 13, and Emma, 11. I saw them regularly, usually every other Sunday, for dinner. Brad worked in finance, something with hedge funds that I never fully understood. Jennifer had been a stay-at-home mom but recently started working part-time at a boutique. Our relationship had always been good. Not perfect. What mother-daughter relationship is? But loving. I'd helped them with down payment money when they bought their first house. I babysat the kids whenever they needed. I thought we were close. That Tuesday afternoon in late March, Jennifer called me with what she described as a serious conversation. She arrived alone the next day, which should have been my first warning sign. She rarely came without the kids. We sat in my living room, the one with the bay windows overlooking the garden Robert had planted. Jennifer seemed nervous, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important," she began. "It's about Tyler and Emma's future." My heart softened immediately. My grandchildren were my world. "Brad and I have been discussing their education," she continued. "Tyler is already thinking about college, and Emma isn't far behind. With college costs these days, we're looking at over $300,000 for both of them, probably more. We want to give them the opportunities we had, but—" She paused, her eyes welling up. "Mom, we're struggling. Brad's income is good, but with the mortgage, private music lessons, Tyler's tutoring, we're barely saving anything." I nodded, concerned. "What are you thinking?" "This house, Mom." She gestured around. "It's so big for just you. Don't you feel lonely here? And the maintenance, the roof, the heating system, the property taxes. Wouldn't you be happier somewhere smaller, somewhere with people your age? A nice assisted living community where you'd have activities, friends, health care right there?" Was I lonely? Yes, sometimes. The house did feel empty without Robert, but it was my home. "Have you looked into these places?" I asked carefully. "Actually, yes." She pulled out a brochure. "Meadowbrook Senior Living. It's only 20 minutes from us, Mom. Beautiful apartments, a community room, organized trips. You'd love it. And it's only $3,200 a month." My mind calculated quickly. My monthly income was about $4,100. After Meadowbrook, I'd have less than $1,000 for everything else. "Jennifer, that's quite expensive. But think of what you'd get from selling this house. After paying off your tiny remaining mortgage and closing costs, you'd walk away with probably $780,000, maybe more. You could put that in investments, live off the interest. And Mom," she took my hand, "you could help us set up the college funds. Not all of it, of course, but maybe $200,000. That would secure Tyler and Emma's futures. You'd be giving your grandchildren the gift of education. No student loans, no debt. Isn't that what Grandma and Grandpa did for you? She was right about that. My parents had paid for my college. Let me think about it, I said. Over the next week, Jennifer called daily. She sent me more brochures. She arranged a tour of Meadowbrook, which I had to admit was nice. She emphasized how much closer we'd be, how she could visit more often. Finally, overwhelmed and wanting to help my grandchildren, I agreed. "You're doing the most loving thing a grandmother can do," Jennifer said, hugging me tightly when I told her. "Tyler and Emma will be so grateful when they're older." We contacted a real estate agent. The house went on the market. Within days, we had multiple offers. Jennifer was right. The market was hot. We accepted an offer of $865,000 with closing scheduled for early May, just 6 weeks away. I started packing, feeling both sad and purposeful. This was for Tyler and Emma. This was love. Then, exactly 1 week after I'd signed the sales agreement, I was scrolling through Instagram late at night, something I rarely did, but I couldn't sleep. I'd been looking at Emma's dance recital photos when I accidentally clicked on Jennifer's profile. Her most recent post from that very day made my blood run cold. The photograph showed Jennifer and Brad on a pristine white beach, crystal clear turquoise water behind them, tropical drinks in hand. Jennifer wore a designer bikini I'd never seen before. Brad had his arm around her, both of them grinning widely. The caption read, "Finally, dream vacation in the Maldives, 10 days of paradise. Sometimes you just need to invest in yourself." Blessed Maldives magic. Worth it. The post had been up for 6 hours, 43 likes, comments from friends. "You deserve it." Living your best life. Goals. I sat there in my half-packed living room, surrounded by boxes labeled kitchen and linens, and felt the world tilt. The Maldives. I knew what trips like that cost. I'd seen features on the Travel Channel. We were talking $15,000 minimum for a couple, probably more for 10 days at a resort nice enough to photograph like that. My hands shook as I looked at the date of posting. They were there right now, while I was packing up my life, while I was preparing to move into a senior facility so they could have money for the children's education. I clicked through her other recent posts. 3 days ago, a photo of them at the airport, suitcases beside them. 5 days ago, countdown to adventure. 6 days ago, a photo of new luggage with designer labels. She'd planned this. The timeline was clear. She'd asked me to sell my house, waited for me to agree and sign the contract, and then immediately booked a luxury vacation to the Maldives. I felt sick, physically sick. I rushed to the bathroom and vomited. When I finally stopped shaking, I did what I'd learned to do in the 3 years since Robert died. I made myself think clearly. Robert had been a methodical man, an engineer. "When you're emotional, Margaret, that's when you count," he used to say. "Count the facts, count the money, count your options." So I counted. The house sale, $865,000. After paying off the remaining $23,000 on my mortgage and approximately $52,000 in closing costs, real estate commission, and fees, I'd net about $790,000. Jennifer had asked for $200,000 for the children's education. Meadowbrook Senior Living, $3,200 per month. That was $30,400 per year. If I lived another 20 years and women in my family lived well into their 80s, that was $768,000, almost everything I'd have. And Jennifer was in the Maldives. I opened my laptop and searched Maldives vacation cost. The results confirmed my fears. A mid-range 10-day trip for two, $12,000, $18,000. A luxury resort trip, $20,000, $35,000 or more. Based on that pristine beach and those overwater bungalows I could see in the background of her photos, They weren't at a mid-range resort. How could she afford this if they were barely saving anything? If they were so desperate for college money that I needed to sell my home? The answer was obvious. They couldn't, unless they'd been lying to me. I spent the rest of the night going through Jennifer's Instagram more carefully, Brad's too. Over the past 6 months, I saw photos of them at expensive restaurants. Jennifer carrying a new Gucci purse, Brad showing off his new Tag Heuer watch, a weekend trip to Miami, theater tickets to a Broadway show. These were not people who were barely saving anything. These were people living well beyond what they'd claimed to me. But why lie? Why manipulate me into selling my home? I thought about it for hours, and slowly the picture became clear. Jennifer wanted money. Not for Tyler and Emma's education. I'd bet anything they had college funds already. No, she wanted money for their lifestyle, for vacations, designer bags, fancy dinners, and the easiest source of a large sum of money was her mother's home equity. Why not just ask for a loan? Because I would have questioned it, asked about their finances, maybe said no. But grandchildren's education? That was emotional blackmail. What grandmother could refuse her grandchildren's futures? As dawn broke over my garden, I realized I'd been crying. Not just crying, sobbing. Because this wasn't just about money. This was betrayal of the deepest kind. My daughter, whom I'd raised, loved, supported, sacrificed for, she'd looked me in the eye and lied to manipulate me out of my home and my security. The question was, what was I going to do about it? My first instinct was to call her immediately, to scream, to demand answers. But I stopped myself. If I called her now, while she was in the Maldives, she'd have time to prepare, time to create explanations, excuses, time to manipulate me further. No, I needed to be strategic. I opened my phone and found my real estate agent's number. Linda Morrison had been professional and efficient throughout the sale process. It was now 6:47 a.m., too early to call. I'd wait until 9 a.m., then I'd make my first move. Robert used to say, the best revenge is living well. But he also used to say, never let anyone take advantage of your kindness. That's not being nice. That's being a fool. I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. At exactly 9 p.m., I called Linda Morrison. Margaret, good morning, she answered cheerfully. How's the packing going? We're just 3 weeks out from closing now. Exciting times. Linda, I need to cancel the sale. Silence on the other end, then, I'm sorry, what? I need to cancel the sale of my house. Can I do that? Margaret, Linda's voice shifted to concern. Are you all right? This is very sudden. Just last week, you seemed so positive about the move. Can I legally cancel? I interrupted. Please, just tell me if it's possible. I heard papers rustling. Let me pull up your contract. Hold on. A pause. Okay, looking at this. You're still within the attorney review period, which technically ended yesterday, but Margaret, the buyers have already secured their mortgage commitment. They've scheduled their final walkthrough. If you back out now, there could be legal ramifications. They could potentially sue for specific performance or damages. What if I return their deposit? What if I pay any costs they've incurred? That might help, but Margaret, what's going on? You seem so certain about Meadowbrook, about being closer to your daughter. Something in her voice, genuine concern, made me crack slightly. Linda, I've discovered something about my family situation. I can't explain right now, but I need to stay in this house. I made a mistake. Please help me fix it. There was a long pause. Then Linda's voice came back, softer. Okay. Let me call the buyer's agent and my attorney. I'll see what we can work out. But Margaret, be prepared. This might get complicated and expensive. I understand. Do whatever you need to do. After hanging up, I felt my first sense of control returning. It wasn't much, but it was action, movement. not just sitting here drowning in betrayal. Over the next few hours, Linda called back multiple times. The buyers were, understandably, upset. They'd already given notice at their rental. Their children were enrolled in local schools starting in fall. But Linda, thank God for her, negotiated skillfully. I agreed to return their full deposit immediately, pay their mortgage application fees, and cover their home inspection costs. Total, about $8,500. It hurt, but it was nothing compared to what I'd almost lost. By 4 p.m., we had a mutual agreement to cancel. The house was mine again. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt exhausted and angry. Because now came the harder part, dealing with Jennifer. I knew she'd find out soon. Linda would need to take the house off the market, and Jennifer had been checking the listing obsessively. But I had perhaps one day, maybe two, before she noticed. I needed to use that time. That evening, I drove to Jennifer's house in Stamford. I still had a key. I'd been the emergency contact for years, staying with the kids when Jennifer and Brad traveled, which they apparently did often. The house was dark. The neighbors' lights were on, normal life happening around this empty home. I sat in my car for a moment, feeling like a criminal. Was I really going to let myself into my daughter's house while she was gone? Yes, I was, because I needed evidence. I needed to understand the full scope of the lie. I let myself in quietly. The house smelled stale, closed up. I went straight to Brad's home office. He'd converted one of the bedrooms years ago. His filing cabinet was locked, but I knew Brad. He was organized but not particularly security conscious. I checked the desk drawer and found a small key taped under the pencil tray. Men like Brad always had a system. Inside the cabinet, I found folders labeled by year and category. I pulled out the one marked Financial 2024. What I found there made the Maldives trip look like a minor offense. Bank statements showing balances that fluctuated but averaged around $85,000 in their checking account alone. Investment accounts worth over $340,000. 2 529 college savings plans, one for Tyler, one for Emma, with current balances of $89,000 and $82,000 respectively. Their children's education was already funded, more than funded. I kept digging. Credit card statements showing monthly expenditures of $12,000, $15,000. Receipts from luxury retailers, high-end restaurants, a country club membership I hadn't known about. Then I found the travel folder. Receipts from the Maldives resort, $28,400 for 10 days. But that wasn't all. Last year, Turks and Caicos, $15,600. The year before, Italian villa rental, $19,200. They took luxury vacations regularly. But the document that made me sit down hard in Brad's office chair was a printout of an email exchange between Brad and Jennifer from 2 months ago. Brad, your mom really went for the college fund angle. Nice work. Jennifer, I told you she would. She's always been a soft touch for anything involving the kids. Once we get the $200K, we should book that African safari we've been talking about. And I want to redo the kitchen. Those countertops are from 2015. Brad, let's wait until after she moves into Meadowbrook. Don't want her changing her mind if she sees us spending too much. Jennifer, please, she won't even notice, and if she does, we'll just tell her we got bonuses or something. She doesn't understand money anyway. I photographed everything with my phone, every bank statement, every receipt, every email. My hands were steady now. The tears had stopped. I felt cold, focused. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a daughter making a mistake. This was calculated, premeditated fraud. They'd planned this together. They'd laughed about manipulating me. She doesn't understand money anyway. Oh, Jennifer, you're about to learn how wrong you are. The next morning, I called my attorney, Thomas Weinstein. Robert and I had used him for our wills and estate planning 15 years ago. He was semi-retired now, but he took my call immediately. "Margaret, it's been a long time. How can I help you?" "Thomas, I need to change my will immediately, and I need to discuss some family legal matters." "Come in this afternoon. I'll make time." At 2 p.m., I sat in his office downtown and laid out everything. The manipulation, the lies, the evidence I'd photographed. Thomas listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly grim. "I want to remove Jennifer as my beneficiary," I said. "Completely." "That's certainly your right," Thomas said carefully. "But Margaret, this is a significant decision. Perhaps you should speak with her first. Give her a chance." "A chance to manipulate me further?" I shook my head. "No, she made her choices. I'm making mine." Thomas nodded slowly. "All right. Let's discuss your options. Currently, Jennifer inherits everything. This house, your investments, your life insurance, everything. You want to change that. Who would you like as your new beneficiary?" I thought about Tyler and Emma, my innocent grandchildren who had no idea what their parents had done. Can I set up a trust for my grandchildren that Jennifer and Brad can't touch? Absolutely. We can create an educational trust managed by an independent trustee. The funds would go directly to tuition, books, approved educational expenses. Your daughter and son-in-law would have no access to the principal. Perfect. That's what I want. Everything goes into that trust. Not $1 to Jennifer. We spent the next 2 hours drafting a new will and trust documents. Thomas also advised me to change my power of attorney, currently Jennifer, and my healthcare proxy. If you become incapacitated, Margaret, you don't want her making financial or medical decisions for you. Not after this. He was right. I changed both to Thomas's paralegal, a professional fiduciary I'd never met but who was licensed and bonded. By the time I left Thomas's office, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Powerful. That feeling lasted exactly until I got home and found Jennifer's car in my driveway. They were back from the Maldives. My stomach clenched, but I forced myself to breathe steadily. I'd known this was coming. I parked and walked to my front door with my head high. Jennifer burst out before I could even put my key in the lock. "Mom, what the hell did you do?" Her face was flushed, her voice shrill. She was still tan from the tropical sun. Brad stood behind her, arms crossed, his jaw tight. "I canceled the sale of my house," I said calmly. "It's my house, my decision." "Your decision? We had a plan. We had an agreement." Jennifer's hands were shaking. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Those buyers could sue you. The agent called me, said you just suddenly backed out without explanation." "How was the Maldives?" I asked quietly. Jennifer stopped mid-sentence. Her mouth opened, closed. I watched her face cycle through several expressions: confusion, realization, then something like fear. "What?" "The Maldives, 10 days in paradise, $28,000 in paradise to be exact. How was it?" Brad stepped forward. "Margaret, I think you're confused." "I'm not confused, Brad." I looked directly at him. "I saw the receipts in your file cabinet, the one in your home office, along with your bank statements showing the $85,000 in your checking account, and the college funds you already have set up for Tyler and Emma, fully funded college funds." The color drained from Brad's face. "You broke into our house?" "I have a key. You gave it to me. For emergencies. And this was an emergency. The emergency of discovering my daughter is a liar and a manipulator." "How dare you?" Jennifer started, but I cut her off. "No. How dare you?" My voice was still calm but cold. "You looked me in the eye and lied. You told me you were barely saving money. You told me Tyler and Emma's futures were at stake. You manipulated me into selling my home. so you could go on luxury vacations and redo your kitchen. You even discussed it in emails. She's a soft touch. She doesn't understand money anyway." Jennifer's face went white. Brad's jaw clenched harder. "You had no right to go through our private documents," Brad said, his voice low and threatening. "That's illegal. We could press charges." "Go ahead," I said. "And I'll show the police and everyone we know exactly what you were trying to do. Fraud. Elder financial abuse. Do you know that's a crime, Brad? Because I looked it up. Thomas Weinstein educated me quite thoroughly this afternoon." "Thomas Weinstein?" Jennifer's voice was barely a whisper. "You went to a lawyer?" "Yes, and I changed my will." "You're out, Jennifer, completely. Everything goes into a trust for Tyler and Emma that you can't touch. Not $1 for you." "You can't do that!" Jennifer's voice rose to a shriek. "I'm your daughter, your only child. You can't just—" "I can, and I did. It's done. Signed, notarized." Brad grabbed Jennifer's arm. "Let's go, now." "No." Jennifer pulled away from him, stepping closer to me. "Mom, please, you're overreacting. Yes, okay, maybe we weren't completely honest about our finances, but we really do worry about the kids' future, about inflation, about—" "You're still lying," I said. "Even now. Get off my property." "You're going to regret this," Brad said quietly. There was something dangerous in his voice. "You're an old woman alone in this big house. Anything could happen. You might need us someday. What then?" I felt a chill run down my spine, but I didn't let it show. "Is that a threat, Brad?" "It's reality. Think carefully about what you're doing." They left. I watched them drive away, then locked my door, checking it twice. My hands started shaking only after their car disappeared. I sat down heavily on my couch and let myself feel the fear I'd been suppressing. But underneath the fear was something stronger: resolve. I took the next 3 days for myself. I didn't answer Jennifer's calls. There were 12 of them. I didn't read her texts. There were over 40. I just focused on reclaiming my space, my home, my peace. I unpacked all the boxes. I put my kitchen back together. I replanted Robert's garden, which I'd neglected while preparing to move. And I rested. On the 4th day after the confrontation, my doorbell rang at 4:15 p.m. I looked through the peephole and felt my heart crack. Tyler and Emma stood on my porch, both in their school uniforms. Tyler held a handwritten card. Emma clutched a bouquet of supermarket flowers. This was low, even for Jennifer. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "Hi, sweethearts." "Grandma!" Emma rushed forward to hug me, and I couldn't help but embrace her. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. Tyler hung back, awkward in that way 13-year-old boys are. "Mom said you were sick," Emma said, looking up at me with worried eyes. "She said you canceled selling the house because you're not feeling well. Are you okay?" "Sick. Of course, that's what Jennifer told them." "I'm fine, honey, I promise. I just decided I didn't want to move after all. But Mom said Meadowbrook would be so good for you," Tyler added, finally stepping forward. "She said you'd be lonely here by yourself. We're worried about you, Grandma." I knelt down to Emma's level, took both their hands. "Listen to me carefully. I love you both more than anything in this world, but I'm happy here. This is my home. I'm not lonely and I'm not sick. Okay?" "Then why won't you answer Mom's calls?" Tyler asked. He was too perceptive, this boy. "She's been crying. Dad's been really angry. They keep talking about you in whispers and stopping when we come in the room. That's between your mom and me, sweetheart. Adult stuff. But it has nothing to do with how much I love you two. That will never change." Emma handed me the card. "We made this for you." "Well, I did. Tyler just signed it." Inside was a crayon drawing of our house with the 3 of us standing in front. Emma had drawn herself, me, and Tyler. "We love you, Grandma," was written in Emma's careful handwriting with Tyler's scrawled signature below. I felt tears threatening. This is beautiful, thank you. So you'll call Mom back? Emma asked hopefully. Maybe you guys can talk and fix things? Maybe, I lied. Because what else could I say to my innocent grandchildren? Tyler pulled out his phone. She's actually outside, in the car. She said she didn't think you'd want to see her, but she really wants to talk to you. Can she come in? Please? I should have known. I looked past them to the street where Jennifer's Mercedes was parked. Using the children as emotional leverage, was there no depth she wouldn't sink to? Tell your mom I have nothing to say to her right now, but you two can visit me any time. You have your own key, remember? This will always be your safe place. I hugged them both, gave them cookies for the road, and watched them walk back to Jennifer's car. Through the windshield, I could see Jennifer's face. She looked terrible. Good. But the children's visit shook me more than I wanted to admit. That evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Brad. We need to resolve this like adults. I'm prepared to offer you $50,000 as a goodwill gesture. Consider it a gift, no strings. Just stop this nonsense with the lawyer and the will. I deleted it without responding. Another text. Margaret, think about Tyler and Emma. They need their grandmother. Don't let your pride destroy this family. Then from Jennifer. Mom, please, I'm begging you. I made mistakes, but I'm still your daughter. Can we meet somewhere neutral? Just talk? I'll explain everything properly. I turned off my phone. But I realized something that night lying awake at 2 a.m. I was isolated. Jennifer had been my primary social connection since Robert died. My old friends had drifted away. Some had moved, some had passed, and I'd let the relationships lapse while I grieved. I'd been dependent on my daughter for companionship, for purpose. That had to change. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I went to the community center and looked at the bulletin board. There was a notice for a widows support group that met Thursday evenings. That Thursday, I walked into a room of 8 women, all over 60, all who'd lost their spouses. The facilitator, a kind woman named Patricia, who'd lost her husband 5 years ago, welcomed me warmly. I'm Margaret, I said when it was my turn to introduce myself. I lost my husband 3 years ago, but I'm here because I just realized I also lost myself. What followed was the most honest conversation I'd had in months. I didn't tell them about Jennifer, not yet, but I talked about loneliness, about grief, about realizing I'd made my daughter my entire world and forgotten I was a person with my own needs and worth. A woman named Dorothy, 72 with sharp eyes and a sharper wit, spoke after me. Honey, let me tell you something. I have 3 children. I love them dearly. But the day I realized they were living their lives and I was just orbiting them, that was the day I started living again. You can love your family without making them your entire existence. After the meeting, Patricia invited me to join them for coffee at a nearby diner. 5 of us went. We talked and laughed for 2 hours. Dorothy told outrageous stories about her late husband. A woman named Chen showed us photos of her new pottery hobby. Another woman, Ruth, talked about the solo trip she was planning to Seattle to visit her old college roommate. These were women who'd survived loss and kept living, really living. Same time next week? Patricia asked as we left. Absolutely, I said. When I got home, I felt lighter, stronger. I had backup now, even if they didn't know they were backup. I had proof that life existed beyond Jennifer's manipulation. I turned my phone back on. 17 more messages from Jennifer. 3 from Brad. 1 from Tyler saying he missed me. I responded only to Tyler. Miss you too, sweetheart. Love you always, Grandma. Then I blocked Jennifer and Brad's numbers. If they wanted to communicate with me, they'd have to do it through Thomas Weinstein. 2 weeks of peace followed. I went to my support group meetings, started taking morning walks, even joined a book club at the library. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like Margaret again. Not just Robert's widow, not just Jennifer's mother, but myself. Then, on a Sunday afternoon in late April, Jennifer and Brad showed up unannounced. I saw them from my bedroom window as they parked. Jennifer got out carrying what looked like a bakery box. Brad wore a suit as if they were going to church. They walked to my door with careful, measured steps. The doorbell rang. I considered not answering, but something told me this confrontation had been inevitable. Might as well get it over with. I opened the door but stood in the frame, blocking entry. Yes? Mom? Jennifer's voice was soft, controlled. Please, can we come in? We brought your favorite, lemon cake from Russo's. I want to talk, really talk, no fighting. I studied her face. She looked sincere. She also looked rehearsed. You have 15 minutes, I said, stepping aside. They came in and sat on my couch. Jennifer placed the cake on the coffee table like an offering. Brad sat with his hands folded, his expression carefully neutral. Mom, I owe you an apology, Jennifer began. A real one. What I did was wrong. I got caught up in keeping up with our lifestyle, with what Brad's colleagues and their wives have, and I lost sight of what really matters. You, family, trust. It sounded good. It sounded almost believable. I've been in therapy, she continued. Just 3 sessions so far, but Dr. Martinez is helping me understand my relationship with money and honesty. Brad and I have been working on our marriage too. We realize we made a terrible mistake. Brad nodded. Margaret, I apologize. The way we approached this situation was manipulative and wrong. We should have been honest with you about our financial situation from the start. I said nothing. I just watched them. Jennifer leaned forward. The thing is, Mom, I understand why you're angry, but changing your will, cutting me out completely, that seems extreme. That's permanent. We can fix this. We can rebuild trust. But not if you've already decided I'm not your daughter anymore. You are my daughter, I said quietly. That's exactly why this hurts so much. Then let us fix it. Jennifer's voice cracked with emotion. Real or performed, I couldn't tell. What do you want? Do you want the money back? We can't give you the full $200,000. We haven't received it yet, but we can pay you back in installments. Would that help? I never gave you any money, Jennifer. I canceled the sale, remember? Right, but... She paused, recalibrating. What I mean is, what would it take for you to change the will back? To trust me again? I'll do anything, Mom. Family therapy together, regular check-ins. I'll be completely transparent about our finances going forward. Whatever you need. I looked at Brad. He was watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. This wasn't the apologetic son-in-law. This was the hedge fund shark calculating his next move. What do you think, Brad? I asked directly. Do you think you did something wrong? He blinked, surprised at being addressed. Yes, of course. I supported Jennifer's plan when I should have encouraged honesty. Her plan. So this was Jennifer's idea? I saw it. Just a flicker. When Jennifer's eyes widened slightly and she glanced at Brad. A crack in their united front. We both, Brad started. No, I interrupted. You just said it was Jennifer's plan. Which is it? Does it matter? Jennifer's voice had an edge now. We're both here, both apologizing. Yes, it matters because one of you is lying right now again. The mask slipped. Jennifer's face hardened. You know what, Mom? Maybe this is partly your fault. Excuse me? You raised me to think family helps family. You paid for my wedding, helped with our house, babysat constantly. You taught me that what's yours is mine. And now suddenly you're acting like I committed some crime by asking for help? You didn't ask for help, you lied. I exaggerated our financial problems to make you feel better about helping. It's the same thing Dad did when he asked Grandpa for that business loan. Remember? He told Grandpa he was struggling when really he just wanted to expand. It's what families do. They make it easier for each other to say yes. I felt like I'd been slapped. She was comparing her manipulation to a business decision my father and Robert had made 40 years ago? Tyler and Emma worship you, Brad said quietly. His voice had changed. No more apologetic son-in-law. This was a threat. You're their only grandparent. Do you really want to cut them off from that relationship? Because if you keep this up, Margaret, we'll have no choice but to limit their contact with you, for their emotional stability. There it was, the real agenda. You'd use your children as weapons, I asked. We'd protect our children from a toxic influence, Jennifer said coldly. You've been behaving erratically, canceling major life decisions on a whim, making paranoid accusations, breaking into our home. How do we know you're mentally stable? My blood ran ice cold. You wouldn't. We would if we had to, Brad said. We've already documented everything. The canceled house sale, our agent said you seemed confused. Breaking into our house, that's illegal. Your sudden personality change. If it came to it, we could make a case for diminished capacity. Maybe you shouldn't be living alone. Maybe Meadowbrook isn't optional. Jennifer stood up. Change the will back, Mom. Put me back as your beneficiary and power of attorney. Apologize for these accusations. And we'll forget this whole thing happened. We'll go back to normal. Sunday dinners, the kids visiting, family. And if I don't, then you'll be alone, Jennifer said simply. No daughter, no grandchildren. And depending on how vindictive you want to be, possibly a court-appointed guardian managing your affairs because we've demonstrated you're mentally unfit. They walked to the door. Brad paused, looking back. You have 1 week to think about it. Choose wisely. The door closed behind them. I stood frozen in my living room, the untouched lemon cake still on my coffee table. They'd just threatened me with guardianship, with taking away my independence, my autonomy, with weaponizing my grandchildren. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding. I felt genuine fear for the first time, not just emotional pain, but real fear for my freedom. But underneath that fear was something else, growing stronger with each heartbeat. Rage. Pure cold rage. They thought I was a weak old woman they could manipulate and threaten. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. The next morning, I walked into Thomas Weinstein's office with purpose. I need to report elder financial abuse, I said, and I need you to help me document everything for law enforcement. Thomas looked up from his desk, concerned. Margaret, what happened? I told him about Brad and Jennifer's visit, the threats, the mention of declaring me mentally incompetent. Thomas's expression grew darker with every sentence. They've crossed a serious line, he said. Threatening guardianship as coercion? That could constitute undue influence, potentially even extortion. And if they follow through on trying to establish incompetency falsely, that's guardianship abuse. Can we stop them? Better than that, we can expose them. He pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. Over the next 5 days, Thomas and I built a case. We documented everything. The original manipulation to sell my house, the emails I'd photographed from Brad's office, the canceled house sale, their demands, their threats. Thomas had me write a detailed timeline with dates, conversations, witnesses. He also had me do something I found both humiliating and necessary: get a cognitive evaluation from a neuropsychologist. If they're threatening to claim diminished capacity, we need professional proof that you're completely competent, Thomas explained. It's a preventive measure. Dr. Sarah Chen put me through 6 hours of cognitive testing over 2 days. Memory tests, problem-solving exercises, emotional evaluation, the works. The results came back in writing. Margaret Hartwell demonstrates cognitive functioning well above average for her age group. No signs of dementia, confusion, or impaired decision-making capacity. She is fully competent to manage her own affairs. Armed with this, Thomas made a call to Adult Protective Services. I'm reporting suspected elder financial abuse, he told them. My client has documentation of her daughter attempting to defraud her of approximately $800,000 through false pretenses, followed by threats of false incompetency claims to regain control. An investigator named Marcus Williams was assigned to the case. He came to my house on Thursday afternoon, a tall man in his 40s with kind eyes but a serious demeanor. I showed him everything. The Instagram posts, the bank statements I'd photographed, the emails between Brad and Jennifer, the texts threatening to limit my access to my grandchildren, Dr. Chen's evaluation report. Marcus took notes steadily. Mrs. Hartwell, this is significant. What you've documented here constitutes attempted financial exploitation of an elder person. In New York, that's a Class E felony. The threats regarding guardianship could be charged as coercion. What happens now? I'll need to interview your daughter and son-in-law. They'll be informed an investigation is underway. After that, it's up to the district attorney whether to press charges. I don't necessarily want them in prison, I said carefully. I want them to understand they can't do this. Not to me, not to anyone. Marcus nodded. Understood. But Mrs. Hartwell, they made criminal threats. That's not something we can just ignore. 2 days later, Jennifer called me from an unknown number. I'd blocked her cell, but not her office line. Mom, what the fuck did you do? She was screaming. We just had a visit from Adult Protective Services. They're investigating us for elder abuse. Do you have any idea what this could do to Brad's career, to our reputation? You threatened to have me declared incompetent, I said calmly. What did you think would happen? We were trying to make you understand. You were trying to manipulate and threaten me into compliance. That was your mistake, Jennifer. This is insane. You're being vindictive and... No, I'm being protected. There's a difference. She hung up on me. That evening, Tyler called. His voice was confused and hurt. Grandma, Dad's talking to lawyers. Mom's been crying for 2 days. They said something about an investigation? What's happening? My heart broke. Tyler, sweetheart, this is complicated adult business. I promise you, I'm okay. Your parents made some mistakes, and now they're dealing with the consequences. But none of this changes how much I love you and Emma. Can't you just forgive them? Please, I hate this. Sometimes love means setting boundaries, I said gently, even when it's hard. A week later, Thomas called me. Margaret, the DA's office, has reviewed the case. They're offering Brad and Jennifer a deal. No criminal charges if they sign a legally binding agreement never to contest your will, never to pursue guardianship, and to participate in a restorative justice program. What's that? It's a mediated process where they have to acknowledge what they did, understand the harm caused, and make amends. It's not criminal court, but it's official. It goes on record. And if they refuse? Then they face felony charges for attempted elder financial exploitation and coercion. Brad could lose his securities license. Jennifer could face jail time. I took a deep breath, set up the mediation. The mediation took place in a conference room at the county courthouse. A mediator named Ms. Rodriguez facilitated. Marcus from APS was there. Thomas sat beside me. Across the table, Jennifer and Brad sat with their lawyer, a sharp-faced woman who looked like she charged $600 an hour. Ms. Rodriguez laid out the situation. Mr. and Mrs. Hayworth, you're here because there's documented evidence that you attempted to defraud Mrs. Hartwell of approximately $800,000 by making false claims about your financial situation and your children's educational needs. You then made threats to limit Mrs. Hartwell's access to her grandchildren and to pursue false incompetency claims. Mrs. Hartwell has agreed to this restorative process rather than criminal prosecution. Do you understand? Brad's jaw was tight. Jennifer's eyes were red. Their lawyer had clearly told them to cooperate. Yes, Brad said. Then let's begin. Mrs. Hartwell, would you like to explain how their actions affected you? I looked directly at my daughter. You made me doubt myself. You made me feel like my home, my security, my future didn't matter. You were willing to render me homeless and penniless in my retirement so you could take luxury vacations. And when I discovered the truth, you threatened me. You tried to take away my grandchildren. You threatened my freedom. Jennifer's face crumpled. Mom, I'm not finished, I said coldly. The worst part isn't the money. It's that you thought I was stupid. You thought I wouldn't figure it out. You thought I'd just comply, like I was just a resource to be managed, not a person. Mrs. Hayworth, Ms. Rodriguez said, what do you have to say? Jennifer's voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't know what I was thinking. I got caught up in greed, I finished. Say it properly. In greed, Jennifer echoed, tears streaming. I was greedy and selfish, and I betrayed you. Mr. Hayworth? Brad looked at me with something that might have been genuine shame. I enabled this. I encouraged it. I made it worse with the threats. Margaret, I apologize. There's no excuse. The mediation lasted 3 hours. By the end, they'd signed agreements. No contesting my will, no pursuing guardianship, no limiting my access to Tyler and Emma without legitimate cause. They'd participate in financial ethics counseling, and they'd pay $15,000 to a charity supporting elder abuse victims, a symbolic restitution. This is now legally binding, Ms. Rodriguez said. Violation means immediate criminal prosecution with no plea deals. Understood? Yes, they both said. As we left, Jennifer tried to approach me in the hallway. Mom, please, can we… No, I said simply. Maybe someday, but not today, not for a long time. I walked out of that courthouse with my head high. I'd won. The story of what happened spread faster than I expected. Not through gossip, I didn't gossip, but the truth has a way of getting out, especially in communities like ours. Linda Morrison, my real estate agent, mentioned it to someone at her firm. One of the members of my widow's support group knew someone who knew Brad's colleague. Tyler, bless his honest heart, told his school counselor he was stressed about family legal stuff, which prompted a call to verify he was safe. Word got around. The Hayworths had tried to defraud Brad's mother-in-law and faced an elder abuse investigation. The social consequences came first. Jennifer's boutique job ended abruptly. The owner was a woman whose own mother had been financially exploited by a caregiver. She couldn't stomach having Jennifer around. Jennifer claimed it was a mutual decision, but I heard through my book club, yes, news traveled, that she'd been asked to leave. Brad's situation was worse. His hedge fund didn't fire him. They couldn't, not without a conviction. But 3 of his major clients quietly moved their accounts. In finance, reputation is everything, and whispers of elder abuse investigation were poison. His year-end bonus was cut by 60%. I learned this from Marcus, the APS investigator, who stayed in touch to update me on how the case had impacted them. They're not destitute, Marcus told me over coffee one afternoon, but they're feeling real financial pressure for the first time. Sometimes that's what it takes. Their country club membership lapsed. Whether they couldn't afford it or were asked to leave, I never found out. Their Christmas card list apparently got much shorter. The private school where Emma attended started asking pointed questions about whether tuition would be paid on time. Jennifer tried to reach out twice more. Once through Tyler's phone, leaving a tearful voicemail saying she'd lost everything and begging for another chance. Once through a letter, 10 pages long, detailing her therapy progress and what she'd learned. I read the letter, then I filed it with Thomas's office just in case, but I didn't respond. My friend Dorothy from the support group asked me one evening, "Do you feel guilty for how hard they're taking this?" I thought about it carefully. No, I said finally. I feel sad, but not guilty. They did this to themselves. Good, Dorothy said firmly. Guilt is for when you've done something wrong. You protected yourself. That's different. The terms of the legal agreement meant Jennifer and Brad couldn't prevent me from seeing Tyler and Emma, but they could make it difficult, and they did. Suddenly, Tyler had too much homework for visits. Emma's dance schedule was incredibly busy, so I adapted. I showed up at Tyler's basketball games. I attended Emma's dance recital. I sent care packages to both of them, books, homemade cookies, handwritten notes. I made sure they knew my door was always open. One Saturday in June, 3 months after the mediation, Tyler showed up at my house on his bike, alone. I told Mom I was going to Jake's house, he said. But I wanted to see you. Is that okay? It's more than okay, I said, pulling him into a hug. We spent the afternoon in my garden. I taught him to plant tomatoes the way his grandfather had taught me. We didn't talk about his parents much. Instead, we talked about school, his friends, the summer camp he wanted to attend. Before he left, he said, "Grandma, I don't really understand what happened with you and Mom and Dad, but I know you're not crazy like they said you were. You're actually the most normal person in my life right now." I hugged him tighter than I probably should have. Emma came to visit 2 weeks later, with Tyler bringing her. They'd coordinated it, apparently, telling Jennifer they were going to a movie. My grandchildren were learning to navigate dysfunction, and while that broke my heart, I was proud of their strength. In August, I made a decision that felt both petty and perfectly justified. I threw a party. It was nominally my 63rd birthday celebration, but really it was a declaration of independence. I invited my widow's group, my book club, my neighbors, the friends I'd been reconnecting with. I hired a caterer. I set up tables in my garden, the one I'd almost lost. Dorothy gave a toast to Margaret, who taught us all that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. 43 people came. They filled my house with laughter and life. Several people mentioned they'd heard I'd been through something difficult and praised my strength. I didn't give details, but I didn't hide the broad strokes either. My daughter and I have a complicated relationship right now, I said when someone asked directly. I'm focusing on myself and my grandchildren. The rest will work itself out or it won't. Jennifer found out about the party through social media. Several guests posted photos. She sent a text from yet another new number. "You threw a party and didn't invite your own daughter?" I blocked the number. But I did respond once through Thomas's email with a message for both Jennifer and Brad. "When you're ready to have an honest relationship with me, not one based on what you can get from me, but one based on respect and truth, my door is open. Until then, I'm living my life. You're welcome to rebuild yours without me in it." Thomas said Jennifer cried when she received it. Brad apparently just nodded and said, "She's serious." Yes, I was. In October, I did something I'd been thinking about for months. I went back to school. Not traditional school. I enrolled in classes at the community college. Watercolor painting on Tuesdays, local history on Thursdays. I'd always wanted to paint. Robert had always meant to teach me, but we'd never gotten around to it. Now I was doing it for myself. One evening in my painting class, working on a landscape of my garden, my instructor commented on my technique. "You're very precise," she said. "Very intentional with your brushstrokes." "I've learned to be intentional about everything," I replied. She smiled like she understood more than I'd said. By November, Jennifer and Brad's situation had stabilized somewhat. Brad found new clients, smaller accounts, but steady. Jennifer got a part-time position at a different boutique. They'd cut back their lifestyle significantly. No more luxury vacations, no kitchen remodel, a more modest car for Jennifer. Tyler told me they'd started family therapy. "It's super awkward," he said. "But maybe it's helping?" "Dad apologized to me for how he talked about you, said he was wrong." "That's good," I said carefully. "Do you think you'll ever forgive them?" Emma asked me one afternoon. I considered the question. I think forgiveness is complicated, sweetie. I don't hate them. But trust? That takes time to rebuild. Maybe we'll get there someday. I hope so, she said quietly. I miss how things used to be. Me too, I admitted. But sometimes things can't go back to how they were. Sometimes we have to build something new. The truth was, I didn't know if I'd ever truly forgive Jennifer. Some betrayals cut too deep. But I'd made peace with the situation. I'd protected myself, set boundaries, and built a life that didn't revolve around managing her manipulation. That was enough. That was victory. Spring arrived, and with it, a sense of renewal I hadn't felt in years, maybe ever. I woke up each morning in my own home, in the bedroom I'd shared with Robert, surrounded by memories I'd chosen to keep. No institutional dining hall, no scheduled activities, no 24-hour nurse station. Just my life, on my terms. My garden flourished. I'd expanded Robert's vegetable beds, adding raised planters for tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. Dorothy from my widow's group came over on Saturdays, and we'd work side by side, talking about everything and nothing. She taught me about companion planting, how basil protects tomatoes, how marigolds deter pests. Your garden is a metaphor, she said one afternoon, wiping dirt from her hands. You're choosing what grows here, pulling out the weeds, protecting the good stuff. She wasn't wrong. My watercolor painting had progressed beyond beginner level. My instructor, Maria, suggested I submit pieces to the community art show in June. I'd painted my garden in different seasons, my house from different angles, and one piece I called Resurrection, a winter garden with the first green shoots breaking through snow. This one, Maria said, pointing to Resurrection, this one tells a story. The painting won second place in the show. A small victory, but mine. I'd also joined a hiking group for active seniors. Every Wednesday, 12 of us would tackle trails in nearby state parks. At first, I struggled to keep up, but by April, I was leading the pack on easier trails. My body was stronger. My mind was clearer. I'd even started dating in a casual way. His name was Paul, a retired teacher I'd met at my book club. We went to movies, tried new restaurants, attended lectures at the library. Nothing serious, just companionship. He knew about my situation with Jennifer. I'd been honest, and he respected my boundaries. You're different from most women I meet, he told me once. You know who you are. I didn't always, I admitted. I had to learn the hard way. My relationship with Tyler and Emma had deepened. They came over every other weekend now, sometimes more. We'd established our own traditions, Sunday breakfast. I made Robert's famous pancakes, gardening together, movie nights. I never spoke badly about their parents, but I didn't pretend everything was fine either. You can love your parents and still disagree with their choices, I told Tyler when he asked me directly about the situation. That's true for you, and it's true for me. Tyler was old enough to understand. Emma was getting there. One Saturday in May, Emma asked if she could bring a friend next time she visited. Her name is Sophia. Her grandpa died last year and she misses him. I told her you're really cool. Of course, I said, my heart full. The next visit, Sophia came. She was shy at first, but by the end of the afternoon, she was helping me plant sunflowers and asking if she could come back. You're like everybody's grandma, Tyler joked. You're going to need a bigger house. I laughed, but I thought, yes, this is exactly who I want to be. Meanwhile, Jennifer and Brad's situation continued to decline, not catastrophically, but steadily, like water wearing away stone. Brad's hedge fund had downsized, and he'd been moved to a smaller role with less client contact. The salary cut that came with it forced them to make hard choices. They put their house on the market in March. I heard through the grapevine, my book club was more connected than the CIA, that they'd had to sell for $75,000 less than they'd hoped. They moved to a smaller house in a less prestigious neighborhood. Nothing terrible. It was still a nice home in a good school district, But the downgrade was visible. Jennifer's boutique job had ended again, this time due to the store closing, not her fault, but she struggled to find new work. Apparently, word had spread in local retail circles. She ended up taking a position at a big box store, part-time, earning a fraction of what she'd made before. The luxury vacations were gone. The designer bags were being sold on consignment websites. Dorothy showed me the listings. Jennifer was selling the Gucci bag I'd seen in her photos. The country club membership was definitely gone. Brad drove a 5-year-old Honda instead of his BMW. Tyler mentioned carefully that they'd had to take him out of private SAT tutoring. Emma's dance classes were cut from 4 days a week to 2. "Are they okay?" I asked, concerned despite everything. "They're fine," Tyler said. "Just different. Mom's stressed a lot. Dad works longer hours. But it's not like we're poor or anything. They just can't buy everything they want anymore. That's called real life," Dorothy said when I relayed this to her. "Maybe it'll teach them something." But the social consequences seemed to affect Jennifer most. Her Instagram, once filled with luxury lifestyle posts, had gone quiet. The last photo from 2 months ago was a generic sunset with no caption. I heard from Chen, another member of my widows group, that Jennifer had reached out to their mutual friend Linda, trying to reconnect. Linda had politely declined. Apparently, Jennifer had ghosted her years ago when Jennifer moved up to better friend circles. "Karma's a patient teacher," Chen observed. The most telling moment came in June. Tyler's 8th grade graduation was on a Thursday evening. I attended, sitting separately from Jennifer and Brad. After the ceremony, in the crowd of parents and students, Jennifer and I ended up face to face. She looked tired, older. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple dress from Target or Marshall's. Her hair wasn't freshly highlighted. She'd lost the polished veneer she'd maintained for years. "Mom," she said quietly, "you look good." "Thank you." How are you?" "I'm well," I said, "really well." She glanced around at my friends. Dorothy and Chen had come to support me, knowing I'd need backup. "You have a whole new life." "I have my life," I corrected gently, "the one I should have been living all along." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "I miss you." Part of me wanted to reach out, to comfort her, to fix it. That's what mothers do. But I'd learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices. "I miss parts of how things were, too," I said. "But Jennifer, you broke something fundamental. Trust isn't rebuilt quickly." "I know, I hoped." She wiped her eyes. "Tyler and Emma talk about you all the time. About your garden, your painting, your friends. You sound happy." "I am happy. Without me." I chose my words carefully. I'm happy because I chose myself. That's not about you. That's about me learning what I should have known years ago, that my worth doesn't depend on taking care of everyone else at my own expense. Brad appeared then, touching Jennifer's elbow. "We should go." He nodded at me. "Margaret." "Brad." They left. I watched them walk to their modest Honda. Watched Jennifer pause to wipe her eyes again before getting in. Dorothy appeared beside me. "You okay?" "Yes," I said, surprised to find it was true. "I really am." That night I sat in my garden as the sun set, a glass of wine in hand, listening to the evening birds. My tomatoes were thriving. My roses were blooming. My life was full. I'd lost a daughter, or at least the relationship I'd thought we had, but I'd gained myself. And that was the greatest victory of all. So that's my story. The story of how my daughter tried to manipulate me out of my home and security, and how I fought back. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because maybe you're facing something similar. Maybe someone in your family is taking advantage of your kindness, your love, your trust. Here's what I learned. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. Protecting yourself isn't selfish. And sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who hurt you deepest. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have forgiven Jennifer immediately? Would you have fought back like I did? Or would you have found some middle ground I couldn't see? Leave a comment and let me know. I read everyone. If the story resonated with you, please subscribe to my channel. I share stories of resilience, survival, and standing up for yourself when no one else will. Because you deserve to hear that you're not alone and that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, your life, your home, your peace, they're worth protecting. Until next time, Margaret.